All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the New York Mets just wrapped up a 10-game West Coast trip. And prior to the Mets going to the left coast, I said that if they were 5-5 on this trip, that they should be happy, and the Mets record on this trip was indeed 5-5. We saw the Mets split a four-game series with the Los Angeles Dodgers. They lost two out of three against the San Diego Padres, and they just took two out of three from the Los Angeles Angels. And if you're the Mets, you should be happy with this. And I say this because the Mets were already the walking wounded without the likes of starting pitchers Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom. But then on this trip, we saw Pete Alonso get hit by a pitch in the hand. We saw Starling Marte, deal with a leg injury, and then we also saw Francisco Lindor injure a finger in a hotel door. They didn't miss each player name. They didn't miss the significant time that they could have. We saw Marte be a big part of the Mets win tonight with two big hits. Of course, Pete Alonso had another big home run tonight for the Mets. And, Frankie Lindor, his hits are not there like they were prior to the finger injury because his bat was starting to come around. But nonetheless, having his presence in the lineup definitely means something for this Mets team. And if you're the Mets, you held your own against the Dodgers, splitting that four-game set at Chavez Ravine with a team that is always very tough. You think about the Padres. The Mets did struggle with them as the Padres bats were there while the Mets pitching was not. And then taking two out of three from a slumping Angels team. We saw this Angels team lose 14 in a row, which led to the firing of manager Joe Madden last week. They came back. They got a win against the Boston Red Sox, and you figured, okay, maybe this is what was going to get the Angels back on track. But the Mets still found a way to take two out of three from the Halos. And I think at the end of the day, I've said it before and I will say it again. It's the power of Buck, and I'm talking about Buck Showalter. He's one of the best in this current era of Major League Baseball from the managerial position as far as motivating his players and putting his players in the best possible position to succeed. And we're seeing that once again with this Met squad. They have a next man up philosophy. It's just like, you saw Scherzer go down recently with the injury, and then what happened? The bats for the Mets picked up the pitching staff, and it seems like it's a different guy every night for this team. Whether it's an unsung hero in their starting rotation, somebody coming out of the bullpen, somebody getting those big hits in the lineup for the Mets, and at the end of the day, they've strung together some wins. They've won the majority of their series, obviously, and with that said, this is a big reason why they have been in first place in the National League East for the majority of the year. And speaking of the National League East, I know that the Mets lead is not quote unquote as comfortable as it was maybe 2 weeks ago. The Atlanta Braves have won their last 11 games, and they've cut that Met lead down to 5.5 games, while you have the Philadelphia Phillies, who are now 9 games out. The Phillies had won their previous 9 contests prior to today. They lost to the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's their first loss under interim manager Rob Thompson, who replaced Joe Girardi, who was recently fired. But with that said, at some point the Braves and Phillies will cool off. Not to say that they won't be teams with winning records and they won't be in the mix for the postseason or the division spot, for what it's worth. But at some point, I mean, you're not going to win all your games. You will taper off. It's all about the ebb and flow of a 162 game campaign. But at the end of the day, for the Mets, it's all about weathering the storm. And this is why I think they should be happy with a 5-5 trip, because with everything that was against them, along with the teams that they were facing, you're able to come out of there 5-5. I think that you should be happy with that trip. You're at the 500 mark, And with that said, now at some point for the Mets, reinforcements are going to come. They're going to get DeGrom back at some point. They're going to get Scherzer back at some point. And you know, with this Mets front office, they're going to go out there and make the necessary moves to give this team an opportunity to make a postseason push prior to the trade deadline by picking up a player or two here or there. We'll just have to wait and see what's coming down the pike for this club because obviously, with the expanded wild card, nobody is really throwing in the towel at this point of the season, especially since we are still in the month of June. But nonetheless, it's always good to look ahead a little bit to see what can be done for a team. Now, for the Mets, they do have an off day tomorrow, and that's rightfully so. After a 10-game West Coast trip, they played the Sunday night game out there, and now they're going to be home on Tuesday for a Milwaukee Brewers team that has been in a slump as well. And the Brewers slump has now seen them fall out of first place in the National League Central. So if you're the Mets, you definitely want to try to go out there and take advantage of that as you welcome the slumping Brewers to Citi Field. So let's see what happens for the Mets. They're 40 and 22 after 62 games. You have to like that mark. They're 19 and 8 at home. So that's something to look forward to if you're a Met fan for the coming week because the Mets are going to be home this week, three with the Brewers and then four with the Miami Marlins, the always tough Miami Marlins in regards to the New York Mets, because in spite of the Marlins record, you just simply throw out the rule book when these two NL East foes get together. But again, if you're the Mets, 5-5 on the West Coast. I know it's not a 7-3 or 8-2 mark, but with what the Mets have had to deal with in this series and who they have on this roster, you will definitely take it. You get back and on that flight overnight from Southern California back to New York. Try to rest tomorrow and see what you can do for the upcoming week against Milwaukee and Miami. But nonetheless, the Mets have to feel good about this. Let's see what they can do this week at home. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.